Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Douglas, and today I want to share a story about what happens when you push a man too far, for too long. People often want the best of both worlds. They try to take what they want without giving anything in return. They want freedom without responsibility, comfort without commitment, and loyalty without effort. But life doesn't bend that way. You can't hold on to something while treating it like it doesn't matter. You can't take endlessly without giving back. I've always believed that once you commit, whether to job, a friendship, or marriage, you should be all in. Otherwise, what's the point? Half measures never build anything lasting. Sadly, my wife, Megan, learned this lesson the hard way. From the moment I met Megan, I thought she was everything I wanted in a partner. She was smart, warm, and carried herself with a light that pulled me in instantly. Marrying her wasn't a difficult choice. It was the easiest decision I ever made. If I could have, I would have chosen her again and again, every single time. But here's the thing. Just because you want something to last forever doesn't mean it will. You can convince yourself you made all the right decisions, only to find yourself blindsided by a reality you never saw coming. Marriage isn't perfect. Anyone who claims it is either lying or hasn't been married long enough to face its storms. Megan and I had our share of disagreements. Of course we did. Every couple does. But we had a strength that I valued more than anything. Our ability to talk things through. We made a habit of it. Whether it was something small like her irritation at me leaving dishes in the sink, or something heavier, like financial stress, we always sat down and worked it out. It wasn't always smooth, but we made the effort, because we both wanted the marriage to work, and effort was how we kept it strong. At least, that's how it used to be. Lately, something fell off. Megan was different. For reasons I couldn't understand, she began pulling away from me, not just a little, but deliberately, as if she didn't want me close anymore. At first, I shrugged it off. I thought maybe she was just having a rough week at work. Stress can do that to a person. But days turned into weeks and then months, and the distance between us only grew. Our conversations, once effortless, now felt stiff and shallow. She gave short answers, avoided eye contact, and shut down whenever I tried to ask deeper questions. If I asked how she felt, the answer was always the same, "I'm fine." If I asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing." It wasn't just words, it was everything. The little things that made us slowly vanished. She grew irritable at the smallest things. I'd ask what she wanted for dinner, and she'd snap at me for always making her decide. The warmth we once had, the closeness, the bond. It was all fading, and I couldn't understand why. Normally, I'd have tackled the issue head on, but at the time, I was drowning in one of the most demanding projects of my career. I was barely getting enough sleep, running on fumes, and juggling deadlines that felt endless. My mind was too scattered to pick apart the sudden shift in Megan's behavior. So I told myself it was just a phase. I believed once work slowed down, things would return to normal. But they didn't. In fact, the longer I waited, the worse it became. The affection between us disappeared altogether. She stopped touching me. No quick kisses. No playful nudges. Even when I tried to initiate closeness, she would recoil as though my touch drained her energy. Every time, there was an excuse. She was tired. She had a headache. She was stressed. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling there was something more. Something she wasn't telling me. When my project finally ended, I felt the weight of my work lift. For the first time in months, I had room to breathe, and I was determined to focus on Megan, on us. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Something was very wrong in my marriage. So one evening, I sat her down. Calmly, I asked why she'd been so distant. Why did it feel like we weren't in the same marriage anymore? I didn't know what I expected, but I wasn't ready for what came. She snapped at me, full-blown irritation, as if I had accused her of something awful. She told me I was being insensitive, that she was dealing with a lot, and I wasn't making it easier for her. Her words stunned me. Dealing with a lot? Since when did that mean shutting me out? We had always been open with each other, Yet now she was building walls I couldn't break through. I tried again, gently asking if there was something I could do, some way I could support her. She brushed me off. "You wouldn't understand," she muttered, before walking away. And that was it. The conversation was over. I sat in silence long after she left the room, realizing she didn't want me to be part of whatever was happening in her life. As days turned into weeks, she stopped even pretending to care. She came and went as she pleased, rarely saying where she was going or when she'd return. We used to check in with each other, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. Now, she could disappear for hours, and I wouldn't hear a word. When she was home, things weren't any better. We barely spoke, and when we did, it felt like small talk between strangers. I prayed, silently, desperately, that she would snap out of whatever this was, that she'd remember how much I loved her. But nothing changed. Weeks passed, months passed, and the further time went, the further she drifted. Miss being home, miss her presence. But to my surprise, I felt peace for the first time in months. There were no games to overthink, no second-guessing every word or touch, no wondering if I had done something wrong. For once, I could just exist without the suffocating effort of trying to fix something beyond repair. As for what Megan thought about my absence, I didn't care anymore. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me, "Please come home." My stomach tightened when I saw the message. For a moment, panic surged. Was something wrong? Was she hurt? My first instinct was to call her, but I stopped myself. If it were truly an emergency, she wouldn't have just sent a text. She would have called. Still, curiosity tugged at me. That evening, after weeks of staying away, I finally went home. The second I stepped through the door, I knew something was off. Megan was suddenly warm, playful, almost giddy. She smiled brightly and rushed to greet me. "Welcome home," she said cheerfully, as if nothing had happened. She laughed, touched my arm, joked about how I had abandoned her. She claimed she had missed me all day, that she had been waiting for me. The change was so sudden, so out of character, that I just stood there, watching her carefully. Her performance was too polished, too deliberate. She must have noticed my lack of reaction, because she shifted gears. Her smile softened, her voice lowered, and she apologized. She admitted she had been distant, said she'd been going through something she couldn't explain, but she wanted to do better now. I watched her closely as she spoke. She couldn't sit still. Her hands fidgeted. Her eyes darted to me, then away, then back again. It wasn't guilt-free affection. It was nervous energy, as though she was afraid of what I might say or what I might already know. I didn't push her for answers. I didn't argue or demand the truth. I just listened, filed it all away in my mind, and let her keep talking. Because no matter how much she tried to convince me she had simply woken up and decided to change, I knew there was more, much more, and I was right. The truth came a week later. It was evening, and I had just wrapped up at the office when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen surprised me. One of Megan's close friends, the same one who had once insisted nothing was wrong. Something in me said to answer, and I'm glad I did. Her voice was urgent, her tone serious. She skipped small talk entirely. "Douglas," she said, "I need to tell you the truth, because Megan won't." My grip on the phone tightened. My chest felt heavy as I braced myself. Then she told me everything. Megan had been cheating on me. All those months of distance, coldness, and silence weren't random mood swings. She had been emotionally invested in another man. I stayed silent, letting her talk, each word sinking like a stone in my gut. According to her friend, Megan thought she had found someone better, someone more exciting. But reality had cut her down in the harshest way possible. The man never loved her. He didn't care about her. He was using her. For money, Megan had been financially supporting him, convinced they were building something together. But once he had drained her, he vanished, disappeared without a trace. And suddenly, everything made sense. Her abrupt change in behavior, her renewed warmth when she texted me to come home, her sudden eagerness to act like the wife I used to know. It wasn't because she missed me. It wasn't because she realized her mistakes. It was because she had nowhere else to go. Her fantasy had collapsed. And now, she wanted to crawl back to the stability she had thrown away. The revelation cut me in a way I can't describe. I felt gutted. The woman I had loved, protected, and built a life with had given it all up for someone who didn't even value her. And now that he was gone, she expected me to catch her fall. What made it worse was knowing she never would have told me. If her friend hadn't stepped in, Megan would have kept playing her role, pretending she was simply healing, hoping I'd never discover the truth. I was grateful, in a way, that someone had the decency to tell me. At least now, I knew exactly what I was facing. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced, but when morning came, I felt strangely clear. It was time to confront her. She was in the kitchen, cooking breakfast, when I sat down at the table. "You've been acting different lately," I began, keeping my voice calm. "First, you couldn't stand being near me. Now you act like you can't get enough of me. What changed, Megan?" She forced a smile, clearly caught off guard. "I told you," she said, turning back to the stove. "I was going through something. And honestly, Douglas, you weren't exactly affectionate either. Maybe if you had paid more attention, things wouldn't have gotten so bad." I leaned back, shaking my head slowly. "So that's what we're doing? We're making this about me?" I paused, watching her stiffen. "Tell me, Megan, is that why you started seeing another man?" The spatula slipped from her hand and clattered against the counter. For a long moment, the room was silent. She didn't turn around. "Look at me," I said, my tone firm but steady. Finally, she turned, her face pale. She didn't even try to deny it. She knew, and she knew that I knew. Tears welled in her eyes. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Her lips trembled, but before she could speak, I continued. "Let me guess. You thought you had something special with him, didn't you? You thought you found someone better, but he was just using you. And when you realized he only wanted your money, he left you, didn't he? That broke her." She burst into tears, sobbing, "Douglas, please, spare me." I cut her off. Her cries grew louder, her words tumbling into excuses, attempts to cast herself as a victim. But I didn't care. I wasn't moved. The truth was simple. She had abandoned our marriage long before I did. She convinced herself that the grass was greener elsewhere, that I was the problem, that she deserved more. And when it all blew up in her face, she expected me to be her safety net. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had already made my decision the moment her friend told me the truth. No amount of tears or apologies could erase what she had done. The only reason I even asked her was to see if she'd lie to my face. And she didn't. That should have given me some closure. But instead, it only confirmed what I already knew. Our marriage was over. Filing for divorce was not an easy decision. Even after everything, the act of ending a marriage is never simple. But deep down, I knew there was no other path left for me. When I told Megan, she broke down. She cried, begged, clung to me like her tears could wash away what she had done. She said she had made a terrible mistake. She promised she could change, that she just needed another chance. But the truth? I felt nothing. Her words rang hollow. The damage was already done, and there was no undoing it. If she had truly been afraid of losing me, she never would have gambled with our marriage in the first place. You don't betray someone you can't imagine living without. I told her plainly. The marriage was over. She tried to argue. She tried to twist the blame, saying I worked too much, that I wasn't attentive enough. She threw excuse after excuse at me, but I didn't budge. I wouldn't let guilt, nostalgia, or desperation drag me back into something already shattered. At first, she refused to accept it. She swung wildly between tears and rage. One moment, she was sobbing, begging me to reconsider. The next, she was furious, demanding to know how I could give up so easily. That almost made me laugh. Give up? I hadn't given up easily. I had held on for 6 long months while she pushed me away, ignored me, shut me out. I had begged her to let me in, to talk to me, to work through whatever was wrong. I tried, and she chose silence. I wasn't the one who gave up. She had surrendered long before I ever did. She just didn't realize it until the consequences caught up with her. Eventually, when it became clear I wasn't changing my mind, she stopped fighting. She got a lawyer, and so did I. There was no dramatic courtroom battle, no ugly fight over assets or property. We divided things cleanly and quickly, like two business partners tying up loose ends instead of two people who had once built a life together. Still, walking away from that marriage hurt. No matter how much she had betrayed me, no matter how clear the decision was, it was still an ending, and endings always cut deep. But I knew staying would have hurt more. Trust is like glass. Once it shatters, you might try to piece it back together, but the cracks will always remain. And I wasn't willing to live in a marriage full of cracks, waiting for the next time it all fell apart. That's the thing about life. Choices come with consequences. And sometimes those consequences mean losing something you thought would last forever. Looking back, I know my career kept me busy. There were long nights, heavy projects, endless deadlines. But I never used my work as an excuse to neglect Megan. Even when I was tired, I made time for her. I checked in. I tried to be present. Work didn't destroy our marriage. Her choices did. No amount of exhaustion or stress could justify cheating. If she was unhappy, she had every chance to talk to me, to tell me what she needed, to work on it together. Instead, she chose to seek something else, convincing herself that it was better. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that you can't force loyalty. You can't beg someone to be faithful, and you should never have to fight for the bare minimum in a relationship. I wasted months trying to figure out what was wrong, trying to repair something that had already been broken. Megan had made her decision long before I even realized there was a problem. And the hardest part? I still loved her when she walked away from me. That's the cruel thing about betrayal. It doesn't erase your love instantly, but love without trust is a hollow shell, and I refuse to live inside something empty. If your partner shuts you out, refuses to communicate, and makes you feel like a stranger in your own home, don't ignore it. Don't convince yourself it's just a phase or that you're asking too much. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. And if they can't give you that, then it's not your job to carry the relationship alone. Walk away, because if you don't, you'll lose yourself while trying to hold on to someone who has already let go. For me, that realization came late, but not too late. I walked away with my dignity intact, even if my heart carried scars. Megan thought she could eat her cake and still have it. She thought she could keep me as her safety net while chasing her fantasy elsewhere. But choices have consequences, and when her dream collapsed, she discovered something she never expected. I was no longer there to catch her fall. So here I am telling my story, not because I enjoy reliving the pain, but because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have given her another chance? Or would you have walked away the way I did? I'd like to hear your thoughts.